Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are live.
I need somebody to run a shotgun with me. I started to think that. No. Oh, really? Yeah. I can do that. She said if you couldn't do it later, you get wrong. That's possible. She down this morning. Yeah. Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Tuesday, October 15th, 2024, time is 10:30 a.m. This is a city council special meeting for the city of Prospect. First item on the agenda is called order. That is done. Next, item on the agenda is comments from citizens. I think Mr. Jacobs, I said. I just want to say I'm a 30+ year resident of the city of Prospect. And when my wife and I decided that this is the community that we wanted to move to, I think first and foremost, one of the things we were looking at was public safety.
So that was a major factor in our decision to move here from Metro Louisville. And I've witnessed the growth of the city, the change in our leadership, and the fact of what's happened to our police department over the past 30 years that I've been here, and especially over the past 12 years under the guidance of Jeff Sherrard. And I know that the purpose of this meeting here is to look at the candidacy of both Tony Denham and Michael Kinney. And I think that we don't need to look any further than the quality of the two men that are applying for that position, and this council is going to be considering. Because over the years, they've shown the integrity, the leadership, the dignity, and the professionalism that we can ask of any police officer. They know the community, they know the city, and they know the citizens. And I don't feel that we need to look further than these two gentlemen to carry us forward with Jeff Sherrard's retirement. He's also been a mentor and a tutor, I'm sure, to them. So they have a great deal of experience in how to administer and how to supervise the other officers. So I don't think that we could do any better than the two men that are up for these promotions. And so I fully support them. And I think I can speak for many of my least constituents that I've spoken to concerning public safety and the change in the leadership here. And everybody is highly praised of these two men. So I strongly suggest that you consider them and approve them for their promotions. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
So there are no other citizens present in the council room and none on WebEx. So I will move to the next item on the agenda, which is my report. I'm going to comment on a few matters that are unrelated to the reason that we're here today, and then make a few comments about Tony and Michael. So the first thing I want to note is that on Thursday, October 24th, from 5 to 7 p.m., the city will be hosting a reception in Jeff Sherrard's honor, in honor of him and his service and his retirement. That will be at the Hunting Creek Country Club, Thursday, October 24th, 5 to 7 p.m. Second, for the council members present, on Thursday, November 24th, so 4 weeks after Jeff's reception, is the Jefferson County League of Cities dinner. The city will pay for a council member and their spouse to attend. Please let John Carter know if you will be attending, and I encourage all council members to participate. Third, we have a resident who worked for the Kentucky Administrative Office of the Courts. His responsibility was to manage the sound systems and video in courtrooms throughout the Commonwealth. He's now retired. He lives down on Deep Creek, He volunteered to assist the city regarding the replacement of our AV system, PA system in this council room. And so we've met with him, we've met with a vendor who does the work for the courts and for other governmental agencies, including Metro Council. And we anticipate that in the first half, at least, of calendar year 2025, we hope to be moving forward with the replacement and upgrading of our current system. I think we've all experienced the shortcomings of our current system. It's got some years on it. It's time to take a step up to 2024 and 2025 standards. So with regard to today's meeting, I'll say more at our regular council meeting than I will today, but I will begin this meeting by stating that I have complete confidence in the ability of Tony Denham and Michael McKeon to lead Prospect's Police Department. I know that our officers have tremendous respect for and loyalty to them. I appreciated Bob Jacobs' comments, and those of our citizens who've interacted with Tony and Michael share the confidence that Bob and I have in them. I've asked Tony and Michael to make some preliminary comments today. Once they've done that, I will open the floor to questions and discussion. So with that, Tony, we'll turn the floor over to you.
Thank you. And I appreciate Bob's kind words, your kind words. I'm not the type person, you guys know me. I hope that you can look at my resume. I'm confident in my resume and those type things. Confident in the leadership positions I've had throughout the years. What's more important is relationships. That piece of paper doesn't get me anything. Positions don't mean a lot, relationships do. And that's my job, is to build relationships with you all. You were elected by the residents. I serve the residents. That means we're on the same team to get that job done. Without a doubt, do we have to agree on everything? Absolutely not. Are we going to? No. Yes, we do some things. The bottom line is to get the job done to help the residents. I'll tell you a few things about myself that are way more important than a job. I'm a dad. I'm a son. That's way more important than anything. I have 4 daughters. Been married for over 30 years. One just got married October 5th. Big day for dad. Another's graduating nursing school. Another's graduating business school. The other's a sophomore in college. I'll tell you, that's way more important to me than anything, than any job, than anything I could ever have. That's the legacy that I hope to be able to say I'm proud of. One day, it's way more important than this. But I'll tell you some things that I think are important to transitioning to this job. I worked for Metro for a little over 20 years. I've been out here over 8 years, or right about 8 years. I have the experience in leading in a demanding transition. If a lot of you remember, Metro government merged in 2003, 2004. That meant the old city and the old county merged together. During that time, there were 12 people out of about 1,200 officers who were promoted to major. I was lucky enough, grateful to be one of those. I was placed in probably the most violent crime division in Louisville, in Portland, Shawnee, the downtown area. And you talk about a transition where there are the Metro Council people, the business associations, internal people within your own divisions, within the department, demanding that you do these things the way they would like for that to happen. I dealt with a lot of things during that transition. Not to mention, I probably had a file this thick of 6 to 8 employees that were on the verge of being fired. So for about 6 months, I probably worked 12 to 14 hour days, more than probably 5 days a week. So I do understand what it means to transition from leadership positions. That was not easy, but it taught me some very valuable lessons. Keep your ears open, listen to what everybody has to say, but you do what you think is best for everyone. And that's the way I feel kind of about that. That was a Shawnee downtown area, New Lude, all those different places. One thing I'm very proud of is during these transitions, some of the mentoring things that I think are way more important than just being a leader. You mentor people like this to take your position when you leave, because it's not about you. It's not about me or anything else. It's about the business. Four of those people during that time, when I learned probably the most I've learned on this job, about internal and external things that dealing with transition and leadership in itself, work upstairs. And they enjoy working in this place. Two of the guys on late watch, one we just brought over, all work for me in that area. Two of the people on mid shift work for me in that area. So they wouldn't be here if they didn't think I could properly lead this place. I can tell you that, and I feel that way. I will transition. I don't like talking about myself at times. You don't need to hear all what I've done in the past to a certain extent. I know you have questions. I'll turn it over to Michael to talk about some of the things that he's done, but I'll tell you, I have total faith and confidence, and reason I picked Michael, there's a very distinct difference in me and him. I'm more of a people person. I'm more of a leader by example. I can get out and talk to the community, not that Michael cannot. Michael's great at technology. He's our firearms instructor. He's our lead investigator. He has a lot of skills to bring to the table that somewhat are different than, and I think that's important, that you have different skill levels to take you to where you need to be for the things that we're trying to do. And I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Well, on a personal level, I mean, I could echo a lot of the same things that Tony has mentioned, so I'm not going to duplicate all of that. So I'll just dive right into what I think makes me a contributor to this scenario. I think first and foremost is we actually have sort of contrasting experiences as far as policing goes. You know, he did the things that he did that led to leadership positions and management, things like that. But that wasn't why I became a policeman. I took a different path and was basically a professional policeman. They begged me constantly to take the, you know, promotion tests and everything, and I didn't want to do it because I was there to be the police. You know, I was there to be out in the community. I was there to make the runs. I was there to help the people. And that's what I did. And in doing so, I also took on the extra task of training new officers. For 15 plus years, I had new people fresh out of the academy, riding in the passenger seat of my car or riding in the driver's seat of my car. And I evaluated their performance on a daily basis. I coached them and mentored them into being the police officers of the future, kind of like what he was saying. You know, it's that opportunity to, take someone and train them to eventually be you, and take your spot. So I think that provides a unique combination of experience for us because he has that leadership management experience. But in gaining that experience, you have to step away from the actual practitioner portion of policing. And that's where most of my experience is at. So sometimes, all of y'all have worked in the business community or in government, and you understand that sometimes there's a gap between leadership and the people that actually execute what you decide that they need to do. And I think I'm the best person, or I'm in a good place to be able to say, that might not work, and to his credit, in many of our conversations thus far, he's been quick to go, no, gosh, why didn't I think of it? So I think we make a really good combination as far as experience. And I guess that's really about all I have to say. This is a new position for me to be in. It's like he said, he's the guy, he's the talker, he's the face of the department. I'm the guy behind the scenes, the nerds out on the charts and gathering data. And that's kind of, I'm the guy that you put in the office with the computer and slide the sandwich under the door. That's kind of my role in all of this. So, guess that's about all I have.
Okay. Guys, if there's any questions that you have that for some reason I don't have the stuff and I can't answer it today, you will get a prompt answer back. So anything that and if I don't know something, I don't know it. I'm not going to make up something and I, blow something out and say that I know something. I'll make sure I get an answer and that you get an answer back properly.
So we'll begin the questions and discussion, but I will say thank you both for your comments today and for your service, for your willingness to step into these new positions. But I would say, assuming the council approves the appointment, that this conversation and discussion should continue, and council members should, and citizens for that matter, should feel free to come talk with Tony and Michael as we move forward. So with all of that said, I'll open the floor if someone wants to be recognized. Sarah.
First of all, thank you so very much. Very excited about the appointments, and from at least my purview, don't have any concerns. You guys are more than qualified.
Thank you.
Really, my main concern, and this is really what I was wanting to kind of really get tactical pertaining to, is the rate of speed.
Mhm.
It seems to be, at least when I speak to the community, the number one concern. We've had people come in, talk about the personal accidents. I mean, you know, I've seen it every time I drive down 42. I've seen it in the subdivisions where people are, you know, I mean, they pass me at a rate of speed that's not appropriate for a neighborhood that has little ones and golf carts running around and, you know, kids in the back of them. So, my thoughts are, I'd really like to understand a tactical plan to address the rate of speed, not only in 42,
Sure.
but also in the neighborhoods. I'd like to see what we can do together
Right.
to make sure the community is very aware that we are taking it seriously, that we are addressing it, that if you pass me going 70, you're going to be pulled over. And that's just how that goes. I've been in Prospect since 1978. I won't tell you how many years because then you can do the math. So that's just not appropriate. And growing up here, you didn't speed in Prospect.
Right.
And as a teenager, you know, I probably still can maybe have a heavier foot than I need to. But you, like going down that hill, you braked and you watched that speedometer at 45 and you crept into Prospect. So I'd like to get back to where you know that you cannot do it. Like it's a no. And I think if we get back to that general sense of understanding that I had as a child, that you go 60, you're going to have some lights on you. I think that that's really going to assist and go a long way pertaining to a lot of concern and a lot of chatter in the community. And I understand that there's 42, you know, there's some ideas, you know, being rattled around, but I think this is more of an immediate need, not something that's 6 to 8 months. So I'd really like to see or hear from you guys on thoughts on a tactical plan to address it, and really kind of see how we're going to implement that. So
Absolutely. I'll answer your question. I agree with you. There is issues when it comes to that. There's no way around it. Anywhere you go in Jefferson County, no matter whether it's Shelbyville Road, Westport Road, anywhere, there's speeding issues everywhere. It's not, and it's, but we're talking about here. We have detailed plans. Obviously, I won't, it's all, I'm already contacted Highway Safety. I'm working on getting a grant. Probably one of our biggest issues is always having enough manpower to be able to do certain things. That's another one of my goals, is to make sure we're fully staffed 24/7. And we're just getting back to that. But speaking of the highway safety grant, I've already met with a gentleman from there to get a grant. Now those run on federal guidelines, which means the budget process we would put in January, and that would be approved and we would get it next October. Obviously, that's something way down the road, but I think strategically you need to think straight further down the road than just the next 5 minutes or the next, as you said, just the next couple months. We're putting together details, work with the 8th Division. They have dedicated traffic officers who can come out here and help us when we don't have enough manpower, when we do. I don't know if that you guys don't see it all the time. There's things that get done that you don't see. There's already been an uptick. We've already kind of talked about our philosophy with the officers. And that's the thing I enjoy is these officers are on board. They listen to what we have to say, and that's a big deal. But we also lead by example. Michael, if it wasn't for getting prepared for this, he'd have been out this morning up on 42. He's been out there quite a bit. Our guys are totally on board with it. The survey piece that you talked about, what people feel safe and don't feel safe about, that's one of the things I want to do. I want to hear from residents. I'll talk to John about using the Survey Monkey to ask people what is their biggest issue in Prospect. Because sometimes we think we know, but we don't. And maybe we do have it right, maybe we don't. But I want to look at those things. But the grant, we're putting together some details, a public campaign. We're going to start a Facebook page back up that will help us look at some traffic issues to get out, to get people out the information of what we're trying to get. We're using some speed data, and there's pie charts, everything in here. We're looking and researching on what to do at different areas. But the main thing is we are going to step up the enforcement, and it's going to be a part of what me and Michael set out to do, and it's going to be immediate. We're looking at a few different things. 42 is one of the main things. We're looking at the accidents too.
Yes.
One thing we have done is look at where have our enforcement actions been versus where the accidents have been. And surprisingly, they're in the same spot. I mean, they really are in the same spot. But we need to do better when it comes to that. And there will be more enforcement, I can guarantee you. We're looking at different ways to use our schedules. You know, when people work together, that we can be out here in different areas. Our speed cart, I know you see that out there sometimes. We use the data from that to look at different things. And also people are going to slow down when they see that cart sometimes. I mean, that's part of what we look at in our data. But there is going to be some actionable things that we're going to work on.
Yeah, so, and I appreciate that. So, my thoughts are just, you know, and I know there's only, as it's always the issue, you know, you've got this much, you know, this much work and
Right.
here's your resources, right? And they're
Right.
they never counterbalance each other appropriately. So, you know, and once again, you know, you guys know, how best to address situations, but, and I know we do a tremendous amount of house checks, and I went back a while to see kind of that ratio. So moving violations have, you know, been somewhere of 6 a month all the way up to 13.
Right.
And the amount of cars are about 30,000 a day. So, and the house checks, not that they're not extremely important, but, you know, maybe there's a balance of trade when we talk about the house checks.
Right. I'm listening.
To the amount of really just focused effort on just sitting on 42 and just, you know, really addressing that. Because I will tell you, because once again, perception's reality. So if I see often people speed past me and all of a sudden they get lit up right behind them.
Mhm.
And I get, all of a sudden, I'm going to start noticing, and I'm going to start noticing my speed too. So
Right.
once again, I don't think, you know, I think there might be a balance of trade here. And maybe the house checks is where we could buy ourselves a little bit of time back or focus back.
Right.
Just,
I'm open to ideas and discussions when it comes to things like that. I will tell you, the House Watch program is very successful. And it can be adjusted. We've already talked about some things. There's some adjustments we can make. But it is a great, if that's almost going into another avenue that I know you want to stay on traffic, but the community policing aspect of being out of the car, being in the neighborhood. And that's one thing I want to measure is how safe do you feel in your neighborhood? And I think the House Watches is a huge part of that. But I'm open to adjustments to things like that. We've already been talking about that.
So
And I
Tony,
know, yes, sir.
Tony is we're out campaigning and hearing from our residents. One thing consistently comes through, people in Prospect love their police.
Yes, sir.
They absolutely love their police. They love Chief Sherrard. They never balk if we come and say, hey, we need more money for this. Never balk, give the police what they need. But I'm hearing two concerns,
Yes, sir.
and I'm hearing it more frequently. I would say 40% of the people I talk to raise two concerns.
Mhm.
First is, as Sarah said, traffic control. or the lack thereof. There's a sense of not feeling safe, particularly on the hill off 42.
Okay.
With the aggressive driving and distracted driving. I saw someone with a prospect, they had more gray hair than I had. They had their phone in on top of, that hill.
Right.
And, the other one is lack of police visibility. That 25 or 30,000 cars drive through here every day. And I'm not sure that they see the Prospect Police. Don't see them at the shopping centers. And I live in Smithfield Green, and I kind of agree with that. I don't see you on Timber Ridge, I don't see you in the shopping center, I don't see the back of the shopping centers. We have a lot of single women and men retired that live in the condos, and their big concern is some kind of confrontation in the shopping centers. We all hear the news. Prospect is consistently is in the top 10 safest cities, but the areas around us are not.
Right.
And Arden Commons, Glen Oaks has problems with theft. There's Sabres Lake Forest. J-Town, the mayor told me she's had 44 carjackings in the past year. So our environment has changed. There's more people, there's more traffic, more aggressive driving. Right. And the concern to get the police out there and visible. When you come through Prospect, you ought to see a police car. Even if it's parked and there's no one in it, you ought to see a police car.
Yeah.
Being on the Jefferson County League of Cities, I kind of hear some different perspectives. The chief of police of J-Town stood up and he said, I asked every one of my police officers, every shift, to get out of their car and walk into a business, walk into a school and say, I'm officer such and such. Right. And how you doing? You having a good day? Just for the fun of visibility. In Linden, chief of police emphasizes you go through Linden on patrol, you go slow.
Sure.
You want people to know you're there and you're watching. And I'd like to see some of those kinds of things incorporated. You guys are the chief and assistant chief.
Yes, sir.
I get that.
I would agree that we absolutely need to be visible. And sometimes where some people, I can totally get that from citizens. That I totally get. We have an officer who does foot patrols daily, works in the shopping centers. I'm not sure, sometimes people don't see him. I get that. The house watches, that I can't emphasize enough how big that is in the neighborhoods.
Can I speak to the house?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Had a condo in Florida for about 10 years.
Mhm.
And most of the people who live in these little municipalities in Florida are not there. They're absentee owners. So they've been doing house watches for a long time.
Right.
And one of the things they did is they turned their house watch over to volunteer citizen patrols.
Mhm.
And their logic was that they needed sworn police officers doing sworn police officer activity, and house checks really aren't sworn police officer activity. And this has been going on for about 20 years, and it's straightforward. Somebody goes out there and check a house once a day.
Mhm.
And if there's any issues, there's any concerns, they call sworn police officer.
Right.
Otherwise, they come in and turn the information in, and again, they have 4 or 5 different people to rotate around. And maybe that's a way of taking some of the burden off of you guys.
Right.
And
That's a specific discussion
that help out.
Yeah, that's a specific discussion that we actually have had. We do have some long-term house watches where people are gone, not just, they're gone during the winter mainly is when it is. We've had that same discussion to cut some of the time that we spend over there. Once a day is for sure checking it. We've not had one burglary since we started that program, since I came out here. But to go back to lack of the speeding, we're going to be addressing lack of visibility. I think that's going to be fixed when we're working on some of the traffic issues. And I totally agree with the shopping center thing. That's one of our issues. We have the shoplifters. Shoplifters now have become serial shoplifters. They don't just come in and steal, a pack of meat, different things like that. The Kroger, if other places come out here, especially the liquor stores, they come in and steal volumes of things, very expensive things. So we do spend time kind of in the stores working with them on different things, but I would definitely take that into account. And I think we do need more visibility no matter what.
I think visibility is kind of the number one deterrent to.
Oh, it is.
crime.
It is, and I will, and I will,
Misdemeanors all the way up.
I will tell you this because I've said this many, many times, and this is the way I feel about it. If you go back when we had these stolen vehicles, thefts from vehicles, and we go back and review flight cameras at night, there's very little, Prospect does not have a lot of activity at night as far as traffic goes. But the one consistent thing we see when we look on the flight cameras are the police cars. Every night, these guys are in and out of the neighborhoods, back out off 42, in and out. They are the consistent thing that are back in the neighborhoods. But I mean, I'll leave it at that. But I think that's a big discussion. But to go back to your point of all the things going on around us, I think some of the lack of some of that, and you'll never be able to measure it. Our guys are very active out here when those things are happening and very aware. And I think that's part of why some of that has stayed out of here. I truly believe that. I'll never be able to measure it, but I truly believe it. You know, we've rode up on stolen cars over on Westover just strictly from patrol. And I do think that the criminal element does know that we're out here at night and that we are pretty active. Because there's times where we look at each other and go, how are they not hitting us?
Right.
They've hit Indian Hills, they've hit Oldham County, they've hit Metro over here, the other burglaries. At times, I think we do have an impact. When it comes
Probably
to-
a little different vision for the
During the daytime, it's totally different.
versus the daytime. And
Yes, sir.
Primarily, you're speaking. of the-
And I respect Rick, he's a great guy.
I went back, Michael, you like data, so do I. Early in my career, I had a boss that I kept coming away with my hands, and he said, in God we trust, everybody else needs data. So I just went back 12 months and took your police activity reports, and there were 29,194 incidents. Now, not all are equal in terms of time, but of the 29,000, there was 26,365 house checks.
Right.
There were 132 citations and warnings for traffic. There were 82 injuries and there were 82 non-injury accidents and 20 injury accidents. And it just seemed back to the house checks. You don't, from where I sit, and I may be wrong, we don't need sworn police officers doing house checks. We need sworn police officers doing the kind of things you messed off about at night.
Right.
And we need to improve the visibility and the attention to the traffic during the day. That's my perspective.
And
Thank you. Go ahead.
I understand that, and we agree, because we've been looking at this house, watch program and trying to figure out where we can trim the fat on that.
I'll volunteer.
Yeah, well, there's inherent problems with having, citizens do that, though. I mean, there's certain risks and liabilities associated with that we would have to, if we were to engage some kind of a plan like that, I mean, certainly there's things that we would have to look at to decide, if the risk is even worth it. And if it is, then there would be some kind of balance that would have to be maintained. But,
So one of the balance, Michaels, that you could do is instead of having the house checks 3 times a day, reduce the number of times you check the house to once a day or every other day or whatever. I've just felt that 3 times a day is overkill.
right,
And I've taken advantage of
Right, right.
when I've been out of town.
and
Anyhow, that's just a thought for you all to be thinking about.
And that's sort of the mindset that we have. We've been looking at some things like the houses that actually have alarm systems on them. Why are we walking around those when they have a system in place that'll tell us if somebody's going into the house? So we're looking at maybe changing the way, the procedures on how we execute those house watches. Because it's a whole lot easier to drive by and go, looks good, rather than having to stop and get out, walk around. Because then there's all kinds of additional things that happen, because we've got a lot of fall away lots, and the sump pump puts the water out. We've had officers slide down hills and everything else. And so, I mean, you know, we're also trying to look at that as a way to reduce some of our risk for injury, because like you said, we are maintaining an older population here on our department, so those are things that we have to kind of take into consideration. But also back to what you were saying about visibility, one of the things that we were talking about was placing a ghost car on 42. But then let it sit out there for a couple of days, and then when people figure out there's nobody in that car, we're gonna do what we want. Lo and behold, that car's gonna be swapped out with a guy with a real loud breathing policeman in it. That's gonna start writing some tickets. So we'll keep, you know, that kind of swapped up to keep people on their toes that way. The other thing you have to consider though also is the design of the road. Unfortunately, the design of the roads throughout our city, you know, be it in the neighborhoods and on 42, they're actually designed to encourage speed. You know, so there's a lot of engineering flaws in the way that the roadways were designed here, you know, because this section right out here in front of here, you have all kinds of conflict points, you know, where you enter and exit traffic. And I mean, there are some good barriers there with the red lights and all that. But, you know, maybe we should consider doing some other things like some raised crosswalks, you know, and they're only raised like that, but it's enough to get people's attention when you drive over it. You get bumps and stuff, you know, so they get some kind of feedback that, hey, maybe I'm going a little fast. Because basically roadways are designed in what they call an 85th percentile. And you put your machine out there or you have somebody with a radar gun and you sit there and file data. And basically that 85th percentile speed that 85% of people that go down that road is what people generally feel comfortable doing. That's their safety zone. So the only way to really slow people down is to change the design of the roadway. And I know this sounds counterintuitive, is to change the design of the roadway to make them feel less comfortable. So they stop operating in kind of the system one mode where they're, you know, just driving on instinct and intuition. And it brings them to a system two mode where they're operating with caution, you know, and they're having to engage more of their brain and look around. So any plan that we do ultimately has to be kind of multifaceted, you know, enforcement is a component of that. But there's other things that we would have to look at to actually address the issue. And unfortunately, a lot of the people are resistant to those things because I've got just a quick chart that I can show you. Like this is some speed data right here from Hunting Creek at Riding. It's where the park's at right now. Everything in yellow represents the speed. Okay. Now I think that falls in line with the perception, right? I mean, clearly people are speeding. That chart right there, the yellow is what's actually enforceable because you can't write a ticket until 10 over. So what we have is a gap of things that there's really not a law enforcement option for, other than maybe visibility and trying to, you know, get them to slow down just by them seeing the police. I'm sorry, did you all see that?
So I've been commuting between Prospect and Lexington this month. And I take Interstate 64 to get there. And they're doing road work on it. And they use ghost cars to
Right.
slow people
Yes.
down,
Right,
and it works.
right.
Yes, it
Every
does work.
day, I see people slowing down before they get to construction because there's a police car there. Now, some of them put the flashing lights on it to call your attention to it. Some of them don't. But I think that's something you really ought to do. And
Yep.
you probably only need to do it in the morning and in the evening, you know,
Yeah.
an hour or two in each direction to do that. I also recognize having left out of here, thinking about that, is there's not a whole lot of places that you could put a ghost car. And that's one of the things you all are gonna really have to consider. It'd be really nice if you could put a ghost car right down the hill by Bridgeport, but there's no place to do that. And that's a real
It's
problem.
tough. We had coffee with the mayor probably a couple of weeks ago. We had a gentleman come in that lives in the condos just past there. And he came out, and he said, look, I'm not expecting you guys to pop out on that hill and do this and that, whatever. But Michael sat up there for multiple days, just during doing paperwork and different things. And that guy came back in to coffee with the mayor and said, hey, that made a big difference. Every time I've come out, people have been, it seems like they have slowed down during that time. And you took some enforcement action, but not a ton. It was a presence that I think probably slowed that down more than anything,
Yeah.
which goes back to what you're talking about, Don, and I agree.
It's the visibility.
Yeah, I think the visibility is probably more important than anything.
Yeah, because anytime I have some paperwork to do that's gonna kind of keep me out of service, I'll go up there into the condos that are right at the bottom of the hill, you know, they have the
Mhm.
turning lane. I just sit right there and do my paperwork. You can see people slamming the brakes. And then when I get finished
Right.
with my paperwork, I'll grab one when I'm allowed. You know, and
Right
right
there.
there, the lights.
Also-
Yeah,
Also across the street where the fire department.
right. And yeah, and we're encouraging, and it's like you said, we've already had some informal conversations with most of our officers. And without really being asked, we just kind of told them that some things were coming. On their own, they've already started to step up their enforcement. We're getting more citations
We
and
do.
warnings.
These guys
Yeah,
are seasoned
so-
guys. They're,
But we're encouraging them to do the same thing. If they have some downtime, just sit where they're visible and do what they need to do, because then they're, you know, kind of engaging in a multi-role activity there.
and in a leadership position, one thing you never, ever should not recognize is go ask the guys what's the best ideas. Because they always have the best ideas because they're the ones that do the work. The minute you go tell them what to do, they're gonna do it because they respect you and they enjoy working here. But when you ask them what the ideas they can come up with, they come up with great ideas. When talking amongst the guys the other night, the survey thing came from one of our officers said, hey, why don't we just ask people? Why don't we just say, what are the rankings of what is most important to you? Yes, and what do you think, you know, the police need to work on? And, you know, what's your neighborhood issues and different things like that? And that's another thing that I really want to do a little bit more of is I would like to meet on a consistent basis, and I'll talk with the mayor about this with the neighborhood association presidents. Sometimes those change out, you know that from time to time, and it takes them a while to get back on their feet to get to know the neighborhood, but we need to meet with them consistently to hear a little bit more.
So Tony and Michael, besides the issue that we've all discussed about the speeding on 42 or in neighborhoods also too, what do each of you think is the most serious pressing issue for law enforcement currently in Prospect?
The car hoppers. The car hoppers. There, it's the car hopping, it's where they drive around, you know, they'll get a car loaded, about 3 or 4 kids. And they drive around trying door handles on the cars. And until they find one that's unlocked, and then they'll rifle through the car. And then there's any number of things that they've been finding in the cars in our communities. To include guns, the keys to the car, the garage door opener, so then they have access to the garage. And then, of course, you know, since people feel safe, a lot of folks, they don't lock the door to the house from the garage, and then, you know, sometimes they end up in the kitchen looking for the keys to the car. So that's our most, I would say, that's our highest priority issue because it poses the greatest danger, I believe,
Right.
to our citizens.
So what, from a law enforcement standpoint, what can you do to improve or lessen that issue?
Well, and that comes down to kind of like what we were saying, you know, I mean, we got to keep those guys in the neighborhood at night. They got to do things that make them visible. Because when these guys are driving around, you know, looking for their cars to, you know, when they're on a particular street working that area, you know, you got to be visible to them, even if it's the next street over. You know, if you're driving down that street and you've got your alley lights on the car and stuff, and they see it between the houses, then they'll relocate, you know. So you might not catch them, but at least you'll relocate the issues.
So the individual cars have the ability to see the flock camera.
I'm sorry.
Are you saying when they come in the neighborhood, will they see where our cameras
Yeah.
are?
No, I know, no. Police car, in your police car, can you? bring
Yes.
The flock
Yes,
things?
yes.
So isn't the issue of the people going through the neighborhoods in the middle, isn't that a particular time frame from 2 to 4 AM. They're not doing this at 10 o'clock at night.
Right. Typically, they do it between 1 and 4 AM.
So,
But yeah, the system doesn't work quite like, I mean, if it did work the way you were saying, or what I think you're getting at, that would be helpful, but it doesn't. You would have to continually search that system.
okay.
Yeah, and then it would update as you search it, but yeah, I mean, that's something that they could totally do.
So between the hours of 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock, which you were mentioning,
Mhm.
how much traffic is actually going through the neighborhoods in Prospect?
Not a
I
lot.
assume it's very limited. So that's why I'm saying if the clock camera trips and says somebody's in Bridgepoint now driving around, goes to their, send the car out to check on them.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
'Cause we don't have that ability. Yeah.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
do or
well,
don't.
you sort of do and you sort of don't. I mean.
I'm not trying to get you
Right,
to say
right.
things that we don't want the public to know about.
Right.
That would affect your ability
Right.
to do law enforcement. I'm just asking, is this something that we can?
In a perfect world, yes, you could do.
Yeah, I'll go.
Tony, how about you?
Abs-
What do you think is the most?
Absolutely. Well, to echo off what Michael's saying, what is more pertinent is something that presents a danger to the neighborhoods, which is exactly what he's talking about. The thefts from vehicles, the stolen vehicles themselves. That presents more of a danger, and that really causes people to feel unsafe when they wake up in the morning and they know somebody was in my neighbor's driveway, possibly could have been in my yard, and I was laying in here asleep. That's a violation of their residence that really bothers people. And that's why probably number one is that. And we have great channels of communications with every department that's around you. Any trends, any suspects, and Michael does a fabulous job of that. That's probably number one because of the danger of it. Speeding is 1A because it's right there at the same thing. You feel unsafe if you're on 42, if you're walking your dog or your kid in your neighborhood, and somebody flies past you. It's just a different thing. The thefts from vehicles, the serial shoplifters we have a big issue with that court doesn't help and hold them with. It's to the point where I'm just going to be very honest about it. I don't know how much time I want my officers taking on something like that if there's going to be no resolution to it. I don't want them spending 2 hours, 4 hours a shift out of our city when they should be here. When they spend 2 hours down at jail, nothing happens at court. I'm not sure I really like that. Another thing that I think is a huge deal are scams, especially for our elderly. It is a big deal. And we have a great resource here, Terry Rancorn, who is a former FBI agent, who I'm really looking forward to working with to use our social media things to get out and help people see and get in front of this. We can have things here at City Hall. Sometimes the best of people get scammed because they are really good. We've had doctors, we've had everybody get scammed out here. That is a huge deal because that's a big financial loss to people. That's probably more along property crime things, but number one's always going to be anything that's a violent crime. And the leaving the stolen guns in the vehicles has calmed down, but it's been an issue. But if I'm looking at number one, yeah, we're gonna do a campaign to get out. People have got to lock their door. Not saying it's gonna stop, but people aren't breaking into cars if they're locked. So we really need to emphasize that. Number one's always gonna be violent crime. Speeding's right there with it because it can cause just as much damage. But the thefts from vehicles, but the serial shoplifters and the scams for our elderly is just literally mad. It's mad.
So, in looking at kind of, I mean, we really socialized a lot of really solid ideas. And it sounds like you guys are continuing to have those conversations amongst yourselves. And also it sounds like hopefully in the future with the community, because once
Yes.
again, I mean, the more they understand, the more, hopefully, the more apt they are to double check their doors when they walk away from their cars, when they park in the street, just once again, awareness. So looking at kind of how to put together, a general list or anything that you guys are going to do or what your plan is, when do you think that, you guys could come back, revisit, here's our thoughts? I'd like more of not, once again, I love, this 8, 10, 12, those
Sure.
reports are great monthly and it gives us a general idea of what's happening, but just, hey, here's what I'm thinking. Here's the strategy. Here's our, next 30, 60, 90 days.
Right.
Looks like. So do you know, or is that something you'd be open to kind of coming back and?
Absolutely. We'd love to meet with you all and sit down and talk about those
Awesome.
things. And
Wonderful
then
time.
those things, numero uno, and you'll hear me say this over and over. I can't do anything if I don't have the people. That doesn't matter what organization you're in. You don't have enough people. But the minute Jeff walks out the door, we're a person and a half down again. So we're up, and I am literally on the hamster wheel of hiring, and it drives me insane because you guys, when we up the salary, now people listen to me. And I'm able to get a lot more done, and we're more competitive is basically what it comes down to. But like I said, the last year we've had two, when we had the two people leave, it was very difficult to replace them with the pay gap. But to get back to what you're asking, and I could go on about the personnel thing because it's that important. And I have a person on the line right now, the minute he walks out the door to be ready to go. Because when he moves, I need an investigator ASAP, and I've got to replace, it has to be the right person. It can't be just anybody. The investigations are too important. So that's going to be my number one focus right away is I got to get somebody in the door. But that we can talk afterwards about maybe setting a time for all of us to meet. But I have no problem sitting down with having actionable plans and things we're going to work on. And then also the understanding things can change on a dime. Because if we have an incident out here, I'll give you a quick example. The 4 stolen vehicles that happened in one night. And that goes back to what you're saying about those people coming in the neighborhoods. They work in packs, and they will come into a neighborhood in 2 or 3 other stolen cars. And they'll immediately hop out and start checking doors. And then they'll get in that stolen car if the keys are in it and they're gone. They're out of the neighborhood. So they move really quick. They don't hang around very long. But then we see those other cars on the block, and that's what leads us to basically finding out. That's what led me and Michael over to off Westport Road to recover 2 vehicles of our residents. So that was very manpower intensive. We probably spent every day trying to get those cars back, following leads as they went.
Well, we got 3 out of the 4 back in a day and a half.
Which was incredible. But that credit to him. He did all the legwork on that. But I'm open to doing that. And I think it's important. And I think it also gives us an opportunity to tell you what we need as tools to.
Exactly. I think it's a two-way communication. We're only going to get
Right.
this accomplished together, not only us, but also as a community. And I
Right.
think the community is more than welcome if you just point them in the right directions.
Yeah.
Like, once again,
I agree.
double check your cars when you walk away. Make sure
Yeah.
you're not putting your garage door, right up with, so once again, people just don't think that way. And raising
Right.
awareness and saying this is a real problem, I think is going to stop them and make them go, oh, okay, you know what? I'm taking that with me, just once again, because they're concerned about their safety as well.
Mhm.
So,
Absolutely.
Tony and Mike, I had a
Yes.
couple of thoughts. When we report the citations and warnings, we're grouping them together.
Mhm.
At the council meetings, I'd like to see citations separated out if we
Right.
could. I
Right.
don't know why you're doing it that way. There may be a very good reason for
Right.
that. But writing citations will go a long way to stopping the speeders because especially in the neighborhoods, word gets around that
Right.
so-and-so got a ticket and not a warning. Also, kind of what you were saying, if what you need, let us know what you need from the city.
Yes.
And we'll do our best to work it into the budget and get you the proper number of officers that you need.
Right.
One thing I've noticed a lot is people on their cell phones and driving. And if we could issue some citations for that, especially a lot of our young drivers are driving down Wyndham Parkway on their phone. They blow off the stop sign. And, it's a dangerous situation. And with the speed monitor machine, I'd like to see that out all the time, not parked behind City Hall.
Sure.
I think it's great where it is now on Hunting Creek Drive. And I know we've had it on Sedgwick. And I'd love to have it on Wyndham as well. But if we could do that, that would be great. And I don't think we could do any better than you guys for a chief and assistant chief. And that speaks very well of Jeff's leadership
Yes, it
and the
does.
ability to get quality people. So,
Your neighborhood's great to put the speed card out because I knock on people's doors that have circular driveways.
Yes.
Because I can set them on there. It's
yeah,
much-
exactly. I appreciate
That's a part of going to the neighborhood association.
Yeah.
Gets me a little closer.
And as far as the speed card, the reason why for a long time it sat back there is there's data cartridges that go into it.
Uh-huh.
And there was an issue there for a while where due to some changing personnel and stuff, that the software that you use to collect that data, the data cartridge itself, all of that got lost.
Oh,
And the person that was managing the machine, kind of got lost in other duties and it was forgotten. Well, what happened is I finally decided kind of
Right.
on my own that, hey, that really, like you said, needs to be
when it's
out on
on
the street.
42, it does
Yes,
have an
because
impact.
I wanted to collect that data.
Yeah.
And that's what I've started doing. And, I basically started this year and he was kind enough to buy us 2 new data cartridges to save that.
Like I say, tell us what you need.
And then so we got it back out there and at this time, I would also like to say that as far as this data goes, I mean, for you all to kind of get the best understanding you can of, what you want to ask from us, I would like to share all this data with you. I haven't in the past because I wasn't, I didn't want to overstep my bounds, and so, but I'm in a position now where I feel like I can offer this stuff. But in anything that you all want, like if you were to say, well, hey, how many burglaries have we had in this year? How many, as opposed to the year before or the year before that? I can compile that data. So anytime, that you want something, I can get you, like I said, speed cart data. I can go online and download where all the traffic stops and the accidents are, and I can separate all that data for you. And I'd be more than happy to share on it. And one of the things we were going to ask is, we would provide, we're going to try to do a better job of putting all this together, for the meetings and provide that to you. And I was going to ask you how you wanted to get that data. Would you prefer that I email it to you, or would you want it to be projected on the screens in the meetings, or how would you?
I think the data is very important because I think it also tells a story. Data always tells a story to me.
Right.
Right.
So I'd like to know what the story is. And also, I wasn't aware that you couldn't, you guys just educated me. I didn't know you really couldn't stop anybody until they're 10 over. I had no idea. So once again, if your data is showing, yes, we have speeders, but you understand that out of this populace, we're really only able to execute an actionable anything against this small fraction of it. So once again, having us arming the community with the depth of understanding
Right.
of, hey, this is what we're going to do, but here's kind of the no-fly zone of what we can or can't do. And then this is where we're targeting. Also, just another thought, because I'm a little tickhead, and other cities have implemented, I have no earthly idea whether legally we can or not in Kentucky, but, there's take a picture of the license plate. So if you're speeding, or if you turn right on red, or you've done something that's not within, you can clip their license plate, and it is at least,
We can't, it's illegal.
it's illegal in Kentucky.
Kentucky
Okay.
doesn't permit it, unfortunately.
Oh, okay, that's why I led with, not Missouri does. I'm just
Yeah,
saying, not
Florida
that I would
permits it.
know, but Missouri does.
Not some home care association that can pass the law right down with their bylaws and do it on their own.
Seriously?
Yeah, really.
That'd be great. That would be a great meeting to see us.
No, there's an
Go
idea.
ahead, sir.
Let me make a suggestion. I think this is a really, really, really good and important discussion, and we can continue. But I also think, following up on some comments that have been made, maybe we schedule this again, and we schedule it maybe in 60 days, maybe in 60 days after that, sort of get a rhythm
Yeah,
once
think
a
it's good.
quarter or whatever it is, so that we can have an exchange of ideas. You've taught me a lot today about the data, and I really appreciate that, but there's a lot more we can learn, and we're certainly always looking for ways to help you do your job.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and speaking of that, we are gonna ask, we feel like we truly need an officer who is dedicated just to traffic. That's all they do is traffic.
Is that part of what the grant would be, that you would be?
No, the grant just supplements, or I don't want to use the words. The grant gives us the ability to pay officers
Overtime.
outside of their normal duties. That's where I'm trying to get to, is to say, hey, you have your normal duties. When you are on this grant, all you do is traffic. That's it. That's all you do.
Got it.
Now, I don't want to paint a big rosy picture that this grant is going to be perfect, it's going to answer everything, because you have to have the people that have the ability to work, at different times. And and that's what I've talked to them about, is we probably would start off with a little smaller amount that first year, but then it would be dedicated for somebody when you work that overtime, and then the city pays it, the grant for the state reimburses the city is how it works. But they would strictly be out on 42 doing enforcements, not back in the neighborhoods, because the grant will not, you cannot use the grant to go back in the neighborhood. It has to be on 42.
On a federal highway.
It has to be on that, but I don't think we'd have a real problem getting it. I don't think we'd be very,
We need it.
yes. It would be very useful, but the thing is, having a part-time or full-time officer that just focuses on traffic would really solve a lot of the problems that we're talking about.
Tony,
Yes, sir.
6,365 house checks,
Yes, sir.
regardless, maybe not a lot of time per, but there's a lot of time there.
Right, I understand.
So
I'm
If-
open.
if
I'm
there's a way to
open
cut
talking
that
about
back, yeah, I think that's where you're going to buy back years of time.
What we totally.
Less of that and more of the other.
We know it's a lot of hard time.
Well, and maybe,
Yeah, we've had those discussions.
In many ways, the program is being.
yes, that's what, and
That's
that-
kind of our perception.
yes, yeah. And if you have a entire security system in which you're alarmed out, I mean, I'm sorry.
Most people.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
you might,
they do.
awareness, maybe you could drop it back down to once time a day, and just for good measure and sense of community. So
Right.
you guys, thank you so very, very much
Thank
for your
you.
time. I've learned a lot. This discussion was a very, very fruitful as far as I'm concerned, and cross collaboration, and I'm very excited about both of your appointments
We
and
appreciate.
having you in those positions.
So let me ask the council, and would you think we try for 60 days or 90 days to do this again?
Yes. What do you guys think?
What, how long?
I think 60 days, we have a lot. We have a lot to transition.
Yeah.
We have a whole lot of stuff. And like I said, I'm back on the hamster wheel of hiring, and it is more important than anything. I'm just going to be frank about it. You got to have the people to do the job, and especially the important jobs of him. I want the investigative part taken off him, so we can focus on what we've been doing here for the last week.
Why don't we do this? Why don't you and I talk?
Yeah.
I'll talk with the council, that we'll talk in January with a view toward when is it going to be helpful
Yeah,
for us? to
because
get-
60 days,
But
I
I-
think, is going to be right in the middle of December.
Yeah, but I'm not looking necessarily for you all to be here in the middle of December or even the middle of January.
Right.
I'm looking for us to talk about what's optimal for you all and for us
Okay.
to get back together. But this has been good.
No, it's important.
The
and
themes
it
that we've
helps.
covered, I feel like we've covered a lot, and it's, as I've said when I was campaigning, then my number one priority was public safety. I would say I support our police and our parks, but I would add the number one thing far and away is
Yeah.
public safety. So this could be a big benefit to the city with the advice from the council, which is coming from our neighbors. So I think
True,
very,
yeah,
very,
that's who we work for.
very, very helpful. So I'm going to suggest if everybody's comfortable with it, we wrap this up with a view toward getting back together. The other thing I'll say is these guys are available
My
outside
door's
of
always
this,
open.
outside of this context. So, and I am too, to talk about this. But if we're good, or do you think we're at a point where we can adjourn for
Yes,
today?
absolutely.
Everybody's comfortable with that? Okay, good. Well, thank you guys very
You're
much.
welcome. Thank you.
Thanks to the
You're very
council. Bob, thanks for being here. I
Thank
think
you,
we've
Bob.
got a good discussion going and I see really some very positive steps being taken. If there's a motion to adjourn,
So.
second, all in favor, please say aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Your sister made it.
Oh, I know.
Probably not gonna be here.
Oh, yeah, I said we ought to touch base with,
Paul Snyder, he's there all day, every day.
Okay. Okay.
He's come down without.
Yeah, let me look at my calendar, and make sure I'm.
He's a nice guy.
He,
I'm glad I got to
you
know
know,
him.
he's, I think he